U.S. Army veteran, VA Accredited Claims Agent, Mr. Anthony Burton. Mr. Burton, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, well, let's get into it.
Urban Christian Veterans provides a safe place for Christian veterans of color to discuss the challenges you face in your daily lives. Being a person of color has its challenges. Being a Christian has its challenges. Being a veteran has its challenges. All of those factors being combined makes for a unique and sometimes difficult life experience that is seldom talked about in public forums. Thank you for tuning in to the Urban Christian Veterans Podcast. Here's your host, D. Allen Rose.
Thank you, Aaron, for that wonderful introduction. This is D. Allen Rose, and you are listening to the Urban Christian Veterans Podcast. Well, first and foremost, let me just say thank you, brother. I really appreciate you coming and sitting with me today. You are the first interview for our second season, so I really appreciate this. And so before we get started, man, could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me as well. So my military story is a little different. I didn't spend a whole lot of time in the military, but being there, especially being a combat veteran, that experience changed me for a lifetime. It led me on a way to where now I'm mission driven to help veterans. So anything about veterans, I'm passionate about. So that's why I'm an accredited agent, a VA accredited agent, to help veterans and their family members to get the justice they deserve.
Right on. And how can someone get in touch with you if they need some assistance with their claim?
Okay, well, they could go to va.gov. They could go to the accreditation section and punch my name in, Anthony Burton, Anthony Burton. They punch me in and they click that. You have a attorney, accredited agent, and a VSO. Got 3 boxes you can check. You make sure you mark accredited agent. You click on that and I'll pop up. And then you go in if you want me as your representation. So you can also reach me at 404-447-8788. I like to have a conversation before I take power of attorney of a claim, because sometimes it's not warranted. Sometimes it's just, me helping people with a little language to tell them what they need to do to move their claim forward. So a lot of times it's not about me taking power of attorney to help you with your benefits. So either way, give me a call on that number, 404-447-8788, or either you can go to va.gov and you'll be able to reach me that way as well.
Okay. How about email? Can someone just straight
Yes, you can straight email me. Email is Anthony, J as in Juliet, B as in Bravo, the number 1 at live.com.
That's important, man, because there's so many veterans out there that need assistance with their claims, man. So it's a good thing that you're doing. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
What made you join the military to begin with?
I'm from the inner city projects, born and raised in Atlanta, ATL. You heard people say Grady baby. So I'm that official Grady baby.
Right.
Some people call me Zone 3 AB.
Okay,
so
right on.
Within that, I got in trouble. So just growing up in the projects and doing things that sometimes young men do, growing up in that environment, I got myself in a little trouble, and I was smart enough to know that I needed to make a change, and it needed to be an immediate change. So I said, if they're going to get me, they're going to get me inside of the system. So what I did was I got in trouble on Tuesday, and I got home and I went into seclusion, hoping that nobody knocked on my door or kicked in my door. Didn't tell my mother anything, and I happened to get a phone call that next day. Got in trouble Tuesday. Wednesday, I got a phone call from a military recruiter, Army recruiter, and was asking me to go in the military. I was like, no, I ain't trying to go nowhere for no 4 years. I said, you got 2 years, or you got? He was like, pretty much, this is not a bargain. Hey, this is 4 years. So I said, ain't y'all got a reserves or something? He said, well, yeah, but I'm not.
Right.
I'm not in that department. I said, well, okay, well, have somebody call me from the reserves and I'll go. So my phone rung about 30 seconds after he hung up, and it was a reserve recruiter. And he said, hey, I hear you trying to go in the reserves. He said, you serious? I said, you can come get me now. He said, are you serious? I said, you can come get me now. This guy drove.
Wow.
The recruiter picked me up that day. That Wednesday, I signed my name. I went down to the MEP station that Friday. So we did the in process, and then it was a quick turnout to where I was shipping out that next Friday. And I told my mom I just joined the military. She said, stop lying. No, you didn't. I said, Mom, I just joined the military. and I didn't know what to
Okay.
expect. I just was running, man. I was running.
That's different, man.
Yeah,
Actually, I say it's different, but in a way, that is a lot of people's story.
right,
You know what I mean? They went in getting away from or not really having a choice.
right.
Sometimes they have the choice either go in or go to jail. So
Absolutely,
okay, I get it.
right.
Okay, so going back to the day that you got out of the service. Hold on. I don't want to ask that question yet. I want to know about your military career, man. Because so
Okay.
given the way that you went in, given that way that you went in and you didn't know what to expect, let me put it this way. Would you do it again?
Yes, yes, I would. Well, it depends. I think I would. My answer would still be yes, but I'm a little militant now, so certain things I don't
Militant in what
agree with.
way? Uh-huh.
Hey,
Okay.
hey,
Like what?
man, I
Put it
mean,
out there.
whoa,
What
that's a whole nother ball game. So that's a whole nother show. But but I guess
All right,
what
give
I
me a taste there.
yeah,
Give
okay,
me a little taste. What do you mean?
okay, when I say, well, it's just certain things don't line up now. The older I got and my younger self, the older I got, I seen that certain things wasn't adding up. And because they weren't adding
Hmm.
up and for some things I did, it was hard for me to rationalize certain things that I did then about what I do it now. Going back, yeah, I probably would have made that choice up until 30, but because I mean I wouldn't went in that old anyway. But so yeah,
Hmm.
so I
Hmm.
said my younger age, 20, 25 to 30, right at 30, I probably would have made the same decision. Anything after that right now, I would say probably no. So I want to speak
Hmm.
to that more. So because it gave me a baseline for what I do now as far as my career helping veterans,
Hmm.
I would
Hmm.
say absolutely because it gave me a platform. You know yourself, you've also inspired me. I'm getting ready to start my own podcast here shortly called Your Claims to Fame. So in your claims to
Okay.
fame, yeah, we'll be seeking, I don't want to sell my accreditation business so much, but what I do want to do is help veterans to know that I want to give them something to where they feel refreshed and know that it's help without feeling like they got to surrender to the VA and feel like they're so displaced. So for that, yeah, for
Okay.
that reason, I think I would say I would do it over again.
So you say it's going to be called Your Claims to Fame.
To fame.
That's the name of
Your
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 claims to
claims, the
fame.
number
Okay.
two fame. Your claims to fame.
Okay.
To fame, right.
All right, we just want to put that out there so we make sure everybody hears that and looks for it. Be sure and let me know so that I can let everybody
Absolutely.
let everybody
Absolutely.
know so I can make sure you get some listeners there.
Okay.
Okay. So now this question, going back to the day that you got out of the service, what advice would you give your younger self about how society would treat you as a spiritual person?
One thing I probably would say is right now I think society normally judges you by your income and your outcome, which is not conducive. And when I say that money motivates movement. So
Okay.
society kind of box people into where it's all about them coins. You're what your bank account says pretty much, and if you don't have it, it's hard to get that them resources of people to reach out because they're not in your warehouse. You gotta be clever and be able to speak well if you ain't got the resources as far as economically or financially. I'm sorry, financially. And then the other thing when I
Hmm.
say outcome is not necessarily where you finish. To me, it's more about where you're at right now. It's the situations, it's that circumstance that you're in right now that has dictated to where you're at. So right now, my outcome is right now today. And because I feel I have a positive outcome and I have a positive outreach, my story isn't over yet. But my outcome now is what they see, where they see me at. And what I would say, my younger self, I would say, make sure you always look good in the day of light. And I mean, when somebody bring you out and they're trying to look at you, make sure you're credible. Make sure you're credible.
Hmm.
Make sure that, you don't have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect, but make sure you're credible. Make sure you've done your research, you've done your diligence to where when you speak on something, be able to speak power, passion to truth.
Have you had any experiences that kind of would drive the advice you give yourself? Like, did you run into any roadblocks or anything that you went through that you say, if I had that to do over, I would do it differently, or at least I would know that this is a possibility of happening to me.
Absolutely. I mean, even in the military, it was just going in the military. Like I said, my situation was it was that thing. You want to go home or you want to go to jail. So I think
Mm-hmm.
back to that Denzel
Mm-hmm.
training day. So home was the military for me. You want to go home? You want to go to jail? I want to go home. So I'm going in the military.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got there, I realized that it's not conducive for everybody, and especially somebody from the streets who I had a strict mother now. So
Mm-hmm.
I did what I did in the streets, but when I got home, I knew how to straighten up. I knew how to look the part, and when I crossed that threshold at the door, I made sure I looked right for mama. But I still was a
Mm-hmm.
knucklehead. So going in the military, I was a knucklehead, and I had a lot of things that, and especially when I hate to see it, but some of the influence, some of my leaders, they look different from me, and because they look
Mm-hmm.
different from me, there were preconceived notions, and it was judging. But it was preconceived notions, judging, and then the power to make you conform to certain things, and that didn't sit
Mm.
well with me. So now it's like
Mm.
I gotta listen to you tell me what to do. I don't, and because I mean, so it was more. That's why I said it was that radical thing. It was,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you the one signed up. You belong to somebody now, and that took a
Mm-hmm.
while for me to really just understand. You belong to something or someone outside of yourself, and it's like, but they got them telling me what to do, and I just
Mm.
was like, oh no. So I stayed in a lot of trouble from my basic
Okay.
training to my AIT. I mean, I think basic training, I got arrested 3 times for
What?
just fighting. I stayed in the barracks, man. In the basic training, I got locked up twice in AIT. So
Okay.
they told me you get in one more fight, you're going to 11 work. So
Listen, man, I try to tell people, I always look out for my veterans. Luckily, the statute of limitations is over, so nothing can come at you now.
right,
But I usually just about everybody I talk to catch me off guard with with something wild like this. But okay, right on. It is what it is. So, did your spirituality play a part in any of this? In whether it be in any capacity whatsoever?
yes, yes. As a young boy, like most of us from the projects, we would have these different church groups pull up, and my mama said, "Go get on that bus and go to church." I'm like, "You not going?" She said, "No, I ain't going." I'm like, "Well, why I gotta go?" So they would put us on
Right.
these buses, and we'll go, and it was more,
Mm-hmm.
it was fun and games. We would play games, we would have fun, and they made church so fun to where we wanted to go. And so I listened, and through listening, whether I did, I always had a sense of the word. And through having a sense of the word, the older I got, it was more of trying to understand it. So at one point in my life, I had different parts. From I say high school, it was more, I thought I had knowledge, and but it was still trying to wrap my mind around biblical truths of where I'm at spiritually, to where I guess in my mid 20s they would say, "Here come baby king, he gonna come preaching to you." So I was
Okay.
I was more in my preaching facet. To, I think, like I said, when I got to 30, I became a little radical. I started listening to community radio and started looking at more things that was affecting the urban communities. And that was more pause for cause. I was like, wait a minute, this ain't adding up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
from
Mm-hmm.
what I'm listening to, from coming from certain pulpits, and this doctrine not adding up to I feel, what's going on in my life
Mm-hmm.
and how I'm living and how people around me are living. So what I did, I
Mm-hmm.
my spirituality drove me to what I call, my own street ministry. And it was
Mm-hmm.
predicated on, I wanted to have this thing to where I didn't want to preach and drain through protocol. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
teach and train through overhaul. So my thing was
Okay.
overhauling what regular doctrine had been teaching us. And I have a principle. I feel that you must unlearn and relearn with
Mm-hmm.
everything you do in your life. If you're not willing to unlearn and relearn, then you're normally stepping into something on information that's been given to you through all sorts of realities. Grandma,
Mm-hmm.
great grandma, they told us to believe this way, they told us to do it this way, and we just said, well, it still works for me. And I'm like, it may work, but at the end of the day, what have you done? Have you done any diligence to go out there and really get your own identity? So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, so that's what I would say. I would say, my spirituality took me on different walks within my life,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm still a God fearing man. I'm a I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm spiritual and universal connected. So
Okay.
I just believe that we all come from a higher source through this universal construct, and it's, I really want to say there's more than one way to skin a cat, but I won't say that. I just say, hey, everything is not always as it's drawn up or made to be. Like I said, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds with it, but that's where I'm at with it.
Okay, I got you. I understand. And that lends itself directly to one of the foundational, I guess, pillars of this whole podcast that I do.
Right.
Because as you know, it's called Urban Christian Veterans.
Right. Absolutely.
And one of the things that I point out as a veteran, we have challenges, right? Just being a veteran, dealing with non-veterans
Right.
that don't really understand where we're coming from, don't have the same sense of urgencies and so on and so forth. Then to be a veteran of color, where we're dealing with non-veterans and veterans who don't look like us, like you mentioned, and those preconceived notions and whatnot still follow us as veterans, when we leave the service. And then being a Christian as well, there's differences in beliefs of doctrines, theologies, and so on and so forth, that certain individuals take their beliefs to the point where they will treat you differently in certain situations based on those differences in beliefs.
Right.
And sometimes they are in positions of power that, in a way, they will influence your situation based on these beliefs.
Right.
And if you can't, I believe what I believe, you believe what you believe, but why does that have to do anything with my situation and the fact that you can influence it? You're going to influence it a certain way.
Absolutely.
Political and so forth. So I'm glad you said that. Your explanation is great. And that's just, you just pointed out, we all who look alike don't all believe the same. We're not all of the same mind, and we shouldn't, one, treat it as such, because we don't all think alike. But at the same time, we shouldn't hold that against one another.
Right.
And I just put that out there because I don't know if you've experienced this, but even within our community, and I don't want to call out any particular group, don't want to do that. But I will say that there are many within our community. Within our community, they all seem to be tugging at one another for followers, because I guess there's strength in numbers. But then I'm still got your back. We're in the same community. You know what I mean? I still got you.
Absolutely.
But not everybody feels the same way, and it causes us to have these experiences, and that is what this podcast is about. Your viewpoint on that, and one of these days, whether it be another episode or something, I got to get you talking about some of these.
Right. Well, I do want to say this. I do want to say this. So, not to get too far in the weeds. So I would say, once again, back as a young child, I've always been more of an autodidactic type person, which is self-taught. So through being that self-taught person, and I've done it with everything, which self-taught is what led me to be an accredited agent. I think when we talked briefly before, I told you it was more, I went down to the Veterans Administration building. I had already filed a claim, but I was looking to file a new claim and get an increase on some things. And I put in some new claims and using a state representative. And through that state representative, we put the claims in, and I know how the system supposedly worked. This before I became accredited, before I knew anything about how the process worked. 3 months went by. So after 90 days, I'm like, I can't see any traction on my claim. I should be able to go to e-benefits, like y'all told me, and see that I got a claim and it's pending. And I couldn't see it. So I went back down there in 90 days. This person, which I won't name names, but this state representative said, hey, it's in there. He said, calm down. Let me reassure you. So he pulled my claim up on his system. He showed it to me and said, hey, here it is. This is what we did. I'm like, yeah, that's it. He said, okay, you see, it's still in my system. Your claim is in. So I said, okay. So another 90 days went by. So now we're running up on 6 months. I still don't see any traction, any benefits. So I went back down and said, hey, look, what's going on? So he actually said, hey, calm down. He admonished me, like, you need to stop chasing this 100%. Look, you can't see everything I see. We got a system where we can see everything and you can't see stuff. So he did the same thing again. He spent the computer around, showed me. I'm like, yeah, that's what we did. He said, okay, so I'm showing it to you. Why you don't believe me? Just calm down. Stop listening to other folks and chasing your claim and just let the process work itself. So I said, okay. So another 90 days went by. So now we're up on 9 months. So I'm like, he's just going to have to holler at me because I got to go down here and figure out what's
Right.
going on. And just so happened he wasn't there that day. And because he wasn't there, they gave me another state representative. And he said, hey, come take a seat. Let's see what you're talking about. So I said, I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my claim. I haven't seen any status in 9 months. He said, well, that's because you don't have a claim in. I said, what are you talking about? So I got livid with this guy. Y'all go get somebody else. I don't want to talk to this guy. He don't even know what he's talking about. I got claims in there. I don't seen it. So he was like, look, so the VA police came over. They was like, hey, we're gonna have to escort you out, man. We know you're passionate, but we're gonna have to escort you out now. I'm like, look, man, give me somebody else. So we could finally calm down. So they was like, okay. So they stood very close. And he said, why do you think you have a claim in? And I told him, because me and your counterpart put it in, and this is the situation. He done showed it to me. Finally, this guy said, let me look at what you're talking about. He looked in his computer, and then he was scrolling through. I actually seen it. I said, Daddy is right there. That's it. I said, so why you saying they got no claim? And I'm looking at it. He said, sir, that's not a claim. He said, all that is some document somebody scanned into the system that don't go to nothing. We don't know what that goes to because it's not a claim. These are just documents in the system. And I got irate. I mean, they really almost locked me up. And they did escort me out.
Wow.
So they just apologized. I said, look, I want some recourse. The supervisor came out. The only thing you can do is file a formal report. This thing goes through your social security numbers, so we can't switch and give you a new guy. So I'm like, you telling me I can't get a new guy? I got to keep the same old guy who I don't have no recourse for the 9 months I just lost, that I don't have a claim in. I don't even have any back pay attached to it. He said, that's what I'm saying. Oh man, I wanted to tear that office up. But when I got calmed down and the police escorted me out and they actually walked me to my vehicle, I sat in the vehicle and they stood there. You all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. And I sat there, and I just said, you know what? I would never, ever ask anybody for help again with my claim. I said, I won't ask nobody. I said, and it took me to where in that moment, I said, I'm going to figure it out. And in figuring it out, it got me to going from understanding what the VA process was, how ambiguous it was, to understanding case law and interpretation, understanding how the VA looks at things, how they're allowed to, do interpretations, and they're allowed to make certain changes long as the changes don't go against law. If they want to try to reestablish something, they have to go through what they call a final rule process through the federal registry. It's also a process. So I had to learn all those processes, figure out how to apply it to my claim as my case study to work it where it is today. And I tell folks, a lot of times people will say, okay, I got 100%, I can help you. I said that one doesn't equal the other. 100% doesn't mean you can get 100% for somebody else's claim. That just means you're trying to tell them what you did. And I'm like, a lot of times, somebody else's claim is totally different from what you did. Case in point to why I've really had veterans come to me. I've had a female veteran come to me that was clean and sober and didn't do anything. But because she listened to someone, now her profile in the VA is she's an alcoholic, homeless veteran. And this was a squared away soldier who never taken a drink in her life. But because she was pressing a claim and trying to get some form of satisfaction, which she justly deserved, she took another road to try to get that satisfaction, listening to somebody else because they were 100%. And I'm like, I'm not saying that a person who 100% can't help you, but a lot of times that doesn't translate into VA case law and how they really look at things and how they really adjudicate your process. So that process in itself, sometimes you can use some things and get through, but I said for the most part, try to get the right representation and know that you're dealing with somebody who understands it and they're making you comfortable throughout the whole process. If they're not making you comfortable with your claim, if you're talking, and most attorneys, and even me, like I said, I'm more of a teacher and trainer. So most attorneys ain't trying to do what I'm doing because they would say, why would you need me if I'm going to show you how to do it? You don't even need my help. So I get paid because you don't know what to do. I don't get paid because I'm showing you what to do. So I'm a little different. So I like to teach and train. So I know I took up a little time, but I said that to say it's the same thing with my spiritual walk. It was that unlearn and relearn process. It was that autodidactic nature. So I had to go into and get into hermeneutics. Well, the first thing I say, you want to be wealthy, go to seminary school. And I know I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Do your thing. Put it out there.
Say, you want to be wealthy, go to seminary school. And I would say a lot of men of the cloth have, and women of the cloth have taken
Mm-hmm.
advantage of that. And you go and learn
Mm-hmm.
hermeneutics. You understand the principles of exegeses and
Mm-hmm.
eisegeses. You get into biblical canons and the Council of Trent, the Council of Nicaea. You get into theology. How everything's split. Once you start understanding that stuff and you kind of line it up, the perspective is there. So it's okay. Well, how you gonna
Mm-hmm.
believe? You gonna believe that we sprinkle? You gonna believe that you
Mm-hmm.
dip? So it's just all the basic interpretations that change the way these different
Mm-hmm.
denominations feel that they're gonna go at the doctrine. But like you said, there's no way they should take that and make it affect change in your life if you're not believing the way they
Right.
believe. Right. If you're not believe, and then especially when you have someone in
Mm-hmm.
power, and because they have power and you don't see things the way they see it, because to me it's all perspective. Perspective means
Right.
witnessing. So all it is a witness to the account of what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to believe the way you believe. This not a cult. It's not
Mm-hmm.
a cult. I said that to say, hey, everything in life is about your journey, your walk. Be comfortable in it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to try to box yourself into somebody else's preconceived notions of how you should see things or view things.
Awesome. Well, two things in response to that. One, I went to seminary and I'm not wealthy. So that part didn't work out for me. So that's the first part. And the second part is, regarding interpretations and so on and so forth. I just know that as a minister, my objective is, saving souls. And it doesn't make sense
Yes.
to, just because we may disagree, go in on somebody, because what do they say about you attract more with honey, right? You don't. and
Right.
and
Absolutely.
that's the point. It
Absolutely.
doesn't make sense to me. Like, I'll see people or hear people arguing about certain things. They passionate about it. It's cool. But when it's all said and done and you walk away, you may have won an argument, but did you lose the soul? And that to me
Absolutely.
is where the bottom line is. So
Right.
anyway, what's the one thing people get wrong about you the most? What would you say that is?
I would say it's my passion before I speak. So most people look at me and I'm unassuming. I'm zone 3AB. So sometimes they look at me, I'm not I'm not I dress when I need to
Mm-hmm.
dress, when I got some formal occasion, but for the most part I'm relaxed. I'm reserved. I mean, I may look like I come from the
Mm-hmm.
streets. A lot of people look and they don't know what's behind it. I had a guy who he was a police officer from Philadelphia, and we were actually in the club, and we had just left the club. It was, and these two guys was outside speaking, and they were standing by my car, my vehicle. So when I walked up, I'm trying to get in, but they were having a conversation. So one of the guys asked me a question, and he asked me a question and how I feel about their argument. And I told him it really wasn't appropriate for me to weigh in. And the other guy said, I would like to hear this, pretty much like based on you look like a street dude. So yeah, give me your take on it. He, like I said, he was a Philadelphia
Mm-hmm.
police officer, which I didn't know at
Mm-hmm.
the time. So I interjected and I spoke on it. And when I spoke on it, he asked me another question, and I answered that question for him. And while I was answering that question, this guy literally broke in tears. And I'm like, hey, you okay, man? And I'm like, everything okay? And he just said, I really want to apologize to you. He said, I'm a police officer. He said, I'm from Atlanta, but I moved to Philadelphia. I'm a Philadelphia police officer. He said, and I just profiled you. He said, I looked at you and I thought you didn't have any substance. He said, I thought that you was a regular street dude that was finna come and offer me some nonsense. He said, I did not know who I was speaking with. He said, I'm so ashamed of myself right now. I said, well, it's okay. I said, I get it. I said, I look like a street dude right now. I'm coming out the club. He said, no. He said, there's no excuse for this. He said, I teach my boys not to be that way. He said, then I'm a black man just like you, and I just mischaracterized you for no reason. He went and got his wife and said, you got to hear this guy. Just speak on basic content. And I'm like, we just speaking. I'm like, well, I said, I don't, I accept whatever your apology is. I said, but I don't think you did anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You for the most part, your first impression could mean a lot. And that's the thing. My first impression, a lot of people, they may think that I just maybe play sports, or maybe I came from the streets, until we have a conversation. And once we have a conversation, I think it's more about the passion I try to speak with. Whatever I do, I try not to do anything now unless I'm passionate about it. If I'm not passionate about it, keep it away from me, because I've done that in the first half of my life. I feel that I'm in the second quarter. I'm really in the third quarter. I'll be 52 Like I said, me and your birthday,
Mm-hmm.
what, a
Right,
week or
right.
two apart. We both Scorpios. We both finna turn the same age, and we almost in that third quarter. Folks said the second. I'm like, no, the third done started. So so in this third quarter, I wanna make sure I'm doing the things that I'm
Mm,
passionate about, because I know before the lights
right.
go out. When the lights go out, it's either job well done,
Mm-hmm.
incomplete, whatever it
Right.
may be. But I only want to do things I'm passionate about. If I'm not passionate about it, I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I would say that, because I speak with passion about things I'm passionate about, that I think that comes across to a lot of people.
Mm. Understood. Understood. And you talk about the similarities as we were talking earlier. I mean, it's just amazing to me how we were in Saudi together, right down the road from each other.
Yeah,
When, yeah,
yeah.
one
When
of the
that
biggest
scud hit.
events that took place over there, for you to know the details like you did is amazing to me. I'm like, I meet very, very few people who, a lot of people will tell me, yeah, I was over there too. But where they were was like hundreds of miles away. They heard about it on the news. But I meet very few people who, when I say, dude, I was right across the street when that thing hit, I watched it. And for someone to say, yeah, I was right up the street too. You know what I mean? And it's just amazing.
Mhm.
And here it is, we talking and like, you know, small world is all I'm saying.
I used to have panic attacks really bad when I first got out. And the panic attacks came from, I didn't like to be closed up in four walls. When I'm closed in four walls, and I start thinking, because I mean, when we were there, when that first happened, it could have been a gust of the
Mm-hmm.
wind and it would have been us. I mean, it really literally missed us by feet. Like you said, it knocked you off your feet
Mm-hmm.
in the dirt. It knocked me off my feet. And it could have literally just took a gust of wind to put that projectile
Mm-hmm.
directly on top of us, and our story would have been different. Them people had just got over there like 3-4
Actually,
days before that.
it
They
was the
haven't
other
even
way
they hadn't even
around.
had.
They were leaving in 3 or 4 days. They had been there, like right across from us. They were getting ready to get and be out of there.
Okay,
Like they was almost free. They were almost home. Yeah,
okay, I know they
yeah,
were Pennsylvania
Pennsylvania, and they were
quartermasters, right?
leaving.
Okay, okay. See, and they had it all wrong. See the story that came out said
Nah.
he had just got in country, and they were there to support the excess mail that was coming through. I
Mm-hmm.
heard they was a
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania quartermaster. So now
Yeah,
like I said, I'm hearing something
because
different.
they were
So they
leaving
were leaving in three
in
days.
less than a week. They were almost home out of there, and I remember vividly because if you think about them being I guess a reserve unit, they only had to do so many months,
Right,
and we
reserve
still
unit.
had another 6 months to go. So we were kind of jealous of these cats. Y'all getting ready to go home. You know what I mean? And when that happened, that
Right,
added to the sadness. Man, it was like, man, they was almost out of country. They
right,
almost made it home. Right.
right.
We
And
had
we
been
had
there.
been there. Right. We end up staying a year, man, and I just kept thinking about that. So what really got me was I knew that this could have been us, and I was just, so when I got home, and then CNN was steady running highlights of this thing coming down. Like, y'all might as
Right.
well tell them where we at. What I didn't understand is they didn't have Saddam didn't
Mm-hmm.
have longitude and latitude. He's just aiming up in the
Mm-hmm.
air and shoot it, let it go,
Right.
and hope he hits something. So I didn't understand he didn't have pinpoint accuracy, but I was so livid. I mean, I was around a hysterical, just CNN just telling all the business. I
Mm-hmm.
can't even talk on the phone like that. Y'all telling me not to tell nobody where I'm at on the phone, but CNN showing exactly where the location
Right.
at. I'm like, what's going
Right.
on? So so when I got home, man, I mean, I used to have these panic attacks after panic attacks, to where the only thing that calmed me down was I literally had to just leave outside of my
Mm.
house and go for a drive.
Mm.
Dude, I was gonna go crazy. And I told the VA, I am not post traumatic. I come from the streets of Atlanta. So
Mm-hmm.
I done seen a lot of this. I said I just have some attacks going on, and panic attacks and stuff that I'm dealing with. So they just kind of combined all of it and said, well, we're gonna just say, but it was more the
Mm-hmm.
panic attacks. And I know a lot of people, don't resonate, that's the
Mm-hmm.
form of anxiety. So because I really couldn't explain it to where, when I had the biggest
Mm-hmm.
panic attack, I
Mm-hmm.
thought I was having a heart attack. And it
Right.
was 10 years after the military. And they was like, you just had a panic attack. I'm like, okay, I've been having panic
Mm-hmm.
attacks. It ain't never been this bad. They said, well, that's all wrong with you. So I was like, you know what? That's when I started my claims process, because I'm like, something's really going on. I know I'm sick. I know I'm suffering. I know I'm going through a lot of, I went through these itching
Mm-hmm.
spells when I first got out and swelling spells. I would itch so bad to where my wife would just cover me with
Mm-hmm.
Bengay all over. I mean, it's a
Mm-hmm.
Benadryl, and I would lay there literally after I get out the shower, and I would just
Mm.
swell up like a blowfish. Like I
Mm.
said, my hair fell out. I'm
Wow.
100% of my hair fell out. And the VA I was taking these freeze treatments for about 10 years. Like, what's going on with me? And I finally had to realize it
Mm-hmm.
was what I was exposed to. So I tell people claims not necessarily about what you look like, and don't feel guilty, because a lot of people feel guilty. But I'm like, hey, the
Mm-hmm.
exposures are what got me. My military career was 6 and 2. I did the 2 years active and the 6 years
Mm-hmm.
inactive reserve. But I didn't even do a full 2 years. When I got home from the Gulf War, I said it's time for me to get out, because them people don't look like me, not treat me right. So so but at that moment before I got out, and I had been exposed already. We had been exposed to depleted uranium, sarin gases, CRC paints, sand dust blowing all
Mm-hmm.
up in our nose and our systems, burning oil wells,
Mm-hmm.
and burning waste, anthrax shots,
Mm.
nerve agent pills, along with the 1,700 other shots you got before you went in, for basic training. So I tell folks, listen, all this stuff over 20 years starts to
Mm-hmm.
culminate in your body, and it starts to affect your joints and everything else. So don't feel like you
Mm-hmm.
don't deserve anything. Don't feel like you don't have a process because somebody else looks a little different from you. They
Mm-hmm.
look like they deserve it. So that's another thing I advocate for. I advocate about the
Mm.
unseen disabilities. And you don't have to prove anything to anybody. I'm not trying to prove anything to you. I
Right.
don't care what you think I look like. I'm not going to even try to prove anything. Only time I'm proving it is when I fill out the paperwork and I back the V up in the
I
corner
think
with it.
you said something.
So that's the only
You said
time you
something
got to
that was
prove
key, man, and that is, the fact that these things accumulate over time. Because when I first got out, I had issues. Didn't know I had issues. I had issues
it.
with
Right.
crowds, issues with surprises. And I still to this day can't stand surprises. Like, don't I need
Hmm.
I need to know what's
Oh,
going on,
absolutely.
what the agenda is. To this day, last minute changes really, really bother me. I don't know why. But anyway, I say that to
Right.
say it wasn't until years after, decades after, that these things really came to a point where it was impacting my ability to perform at my best, whether it be physical or mental. You
Okay.
know,
Okay.
had a couple jobs where I was pretty good at what I did, but then it wasn't until many, many, many years later, and
Okay.
as the older I get, the more I feel that my mental ability is not as sharp as it used to be because of these distractions in my head.
Right.
And it's like you said, it's over years, accumulation of things that it's hard to explain. And then when you got to go to the VA and say, yo, this thing that happened 30 years ago, you know what I mean? And they be like, oh, for real? They prove it. You know what I mean?
Well, see, I call
Mm.
it the used car syndrome. So the VA know that, because that's my language. I tell them that's a used car syndrome. It might look good, it might
Mm-hmm.
ride good, but it's a used car. There's a lot of things going on with it. The transmission might fall apart. You might have some fluids in it that's been there, and
Mm-hmm.
it's got a little rust in it. But I said
Right.
that's
Right.
exposure. It's exposure, and I'm getting ready. Honestly, I'm kind of by my time, but I had actually
Mm-hmm.
filed a Social Security claim, and I don't like how the Social Security views veterans. I think they really dropped the ball. And I'm really thinking about going a little further, but I don't want to take too much time on it. But what I hate was the VA lists Gulf War veterans as the most vulnerable population of people in this country. And the reason they do is because we have so many unforeseen and undiagnosed illnesses that they don't
Mm.
understand our mortality rate. They don't know our mortality rate. We are more susceptible to death
Mm.
than Vietnam era vets. A lot of them has lived there 40, 50 years. But they know that a lot of Gulf War veterans are getting 30, getting 25, and because they don't understand it. And the thing is, because the exposure was so high, they called the exposure of Vietnam era vets herbicides, which was Agent Orange. Well, herbicides are no different from pesticides, and they claim they didn't spray down pesticides in the Gulf War area, but they did. Y'all sprayed them to help with the insects. So any exposure to any one of the herbicides, the pesticides, any of it, we know that side means death. So if you spraying death,
You
you
know,
know that we
man,
exposed to it. So
I
I
don't mean to
really
cut you
didn't.
off, but when you just said that, it brought back a memory
Yeah,
of it was they gave it to us to spray it. Like I remember being like the thing on the
right,
Joker's back, and they walking around spraying because of the flies and
right,
whatnot around the
right.
the porta potties and whatnot.
But see, that's what they said. Right. They said it. They said they didn't drop it overhead. I don't even know how true that is. But we know you sprayed it. So anytime you're spraying this chemical, we're susceptible to it. It goes along with all the other
Mm-hmm.
exposure rates we got. So what I said to bring that and push it back to say that the way they look at things and the way they actually Social Security say, well, hey, we're gonna look at you like you're part of the general
Mm-hmm.
public because that's what they have to do. In order for you to get your Social Security claim through, they take you and get a baseline and they put you in the general public and they give you a case study to say we're gonna take so many people in the general public and we're gonna take you and say what's the difference? If they can do it, you can do it. Well, no,
Mm.
they don't have comeback exposures. They don't have comorbid disabilities, overlapping, unremissive disabilities. So how can you take me and align me up with somebody in the general public? You can't even align me up to a veteran
Mm.
who haven't went to combat. So I dare you take me and line me up with somebody in the general public. And I had to say this I went to the VA and I had to explain this to one of the doctors. She was saying, okay, I know you're diagnosed with fibromyalgia. What's different from your fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue? I said, it's the way I got it. It's the exposure. She said, well, that doesn't translate to me. She said, what we do is we treat acute syndrome. I said, I get that. She said, so what make you think I'm going to treat your fibromyalgia different than I treat somebody else's? I said, once again, you have to understand the exposure. I said, you have to understand that mines have no etiology. You may have an etiology for theirs that gives you a baseline on how to treat it. You don't even know how I got it because I was exposed to so many different things. That's why it's part of the Gulf War syndrome. She said, well, you know what you need to do? You need to go to a military hospital. I said, where you think you at? She said, this is the VA hospital. I said, this is the VA hospital, but 99.9% of veterans are combat veterans who
Mm-hmm.
suffered from something. I
Right.
said, that's why they're here in the VA hospital. I said, do you understand that you're not in a civilian hospital? I said, you're in a combat hospital.
Right.
I said, this is really triage. But they just try to adjudicate it a different way because the regional office is the lock. The hospital is the key. They're supposed to treat you for anything, but they don't want to talk about compensation. So she said, you know what? I never thought about it that way. She said, I really haven't. She said, have you ever told that to anybody else? I'm like, who listening? I'm like, sure, I've said it, but who's listening? I said,
Mm.
so this is what we got to change, and especially through Social Security in some of those areas. I want to let them know you can't take me and box me in with the general public, and that's what the judge did. So I want to take this. I want to take it further, but I just
Mm.
got other things to do right now. But I'm gonna really take that challenge pretty soon because I don't think Social Security gets it. You're making Gulf War soldiers who served in that region, combat veterans with all these exposures, go through what the general public goes through. Like we suffer from the same things, and because they can do this, I should be able to do it. I'm like, wrong answer,
Mm.
but we'll deal with that another day.
Yeah, we need to come back and talk to that to that topic.
Yep.
All right. So, is there anything you wish I would have asked? And if so, how would you answer?
Yeah, I would say, and we kind of answered it. It's more of is questioning your beliefs and not only normal. I feel that it's required in
Mm.
pursuit of universal clarity. And I mean that in relationships with what I call intellectual standards. And really, intellectual standards is the same thing as intellectual capital. So I just believe that if you've never questioned your faith, and when I mean question, I mean, understanding what intellectual standards are. It's clarity, it's purity, it's there are different things that gets you to conform a consensus. It's more about the
Mm-hmm.
unlearn and the relearn process, and I tell people you don't have to. But what I hate is because at the end of the day, if you do that and step back in and say, hey, the way I got it, I'm okay with it. And the way I learned
Mm-hmm.
everything, I'm cool with it. Then you rock with it. I mean, that's either you could say it's Occam's razor. You know, the best information we've got, I feel that I've seen it and I'm going to rock with this. But a lot
Mm.
of people don't even do that work. And they go to telling me what grandma said, what great grandma said, what happened when they was a child. I'm like, hey, I feel like the universe is neutral. Positive gets positive, negative gets negative. So if you negative, you're gonna get negative. That's why you got some of these saints been sitting up in church for 30 years and ain't got no victory. And I'm just talking. I mean, I know I'm getting in the weed. They still asking
Right.
for a car.
Okay.
Still then I'm not saying that I'm not belittling it, but I say, we're so spoiled because we were
Mm-hmm.
born in a place of privilege. And we feel that I'm like, all you had to do is be born, you should have been born a continental way with a
Mm-hmm.
snotty nose and nothing to eat, and no way to get it, and then see how you feel with your mortality rate
Mm.
at about 10 years. You wouldn't have had nothing to say because you're a product of your environment. You think you special because you was born here. You got privilege and you get to read and you get to write and you get to see things a little different. I'm like, you could have easily been born, with them dropping rice patties or dropping off flowers for you to get your food, or you walking 2 miles
Mm-hmm.
to get dirty water to drink. So I'm like, prosperity to me I don't get it when people think that it's because they deserve. Okay, I deserve this because I'm like, you got it because of privilege, because you were born in a
Mm.
place where privilege exists, and then they want to take these. Okay, well maybe they were born in that region because of. Okay, now they were born that way because they don't deserve nothing. God made sure that they weren't worthy. I'm like, what's your explanation? What's your reasoning for kids being
Mm.
born impoverished? Like they deserve it. Like I'm like it's no rhyme or reason. Like don't okay, I deserve this Cadillac because I've been faithful. I've been a faithful steward. I deserve this big house. I deserve it. Okay, well, hey, listen. I don't like to get. I don't like. I'm getting into the weeds now.
Well,
I'm
nah,
not
you
gonna
know
do
what?
that.
We need to we
I'm
need
not gonna do that.
to revisit some of these things on if you'll come back. If you'll come back and we
Okay,
should
absolutely,
revisit and
absolutely.
dig down into some of the weeds. Let's get into some of the weeds and
Yeah,
yeah,
do,
let's
do a
do
little
that.
round
Let's
table or something.
we do that.
Okay, okay.
I because you bring up a lot of good points, and I think that we could have some healthy dialogue, some back and forth about some things.
Absolutely,
Okay, so
absolutely.
what I like to do, man, is before people leave, I like to give them an opportunity to speak thoughts on any current events that might be in the news that you would like to address. And I know that one that's been, now there's plenty out there. Don't get me wrong. There's a whole bunch out there, but one that seems to not want to go away is this thing about mass shootings. What are your thoughts on that?
Hmm. So a mass shooting is, I mean, I guess when more than one get shot. So it leads me back to speaking about gun control, I think. So I'm one of them people that believe in the right to bear arms by any means necessary. I don't, and I think that the government are humble. They're humble suitors. So when I said they're humble suitors, they look for the general public to cry wolf and demand their civil liberties be taken. So because they know this happens, because they know that certain people feel certain ways when these situations happen, they all they need is enough consensus to say, okay, well, we'll mandate another right. We'll take this from you. We'll take that from you. You asked for it. You told us to control it better. So I just say, it's a lot of law and legislation should have been put in other areas, and the reason it's going on because it hasn't happened that way. So it's like a big wrestling match. They plan on one thing to make the other, and it just so happen it's always going to be casualties of the conflict, and they know it, and it's acceptable casualties. I mean, hey, you really think the homeless populations exist and sit outside the neighborhoods because the government can't do no better? No, they like people to know, hey, you can be just like them folks over there. You don't go to work, you don't work hard, you miss a
Mm,
paycheck, you can be homeless just like them. So that keeps us, and I don't want to be homeless. So they let that faction grow, and they make it look a certain way because they want to keep people
hmm
knowing you one step away from that. And I think it's similar in a lot of other things. If you one step away from death, if you don't vote this way or look at it this way or make proper decisions about gun control because of these mass shootings, and I say, hey, they've created the battlefield and then played with the terms of how how things happen. So I just say, at the end of the day, I'm prayerful, and I don't want to be like I'm being cruel to families that's been affected. I think we've all been affected in some kind of way, family members. But I just feel that, to talk about mass shootings and, first thing they'll say is, well, we don't need this kind of weapon. I say, hey, if they get that started, the next thing gonna be is, well, we don't need silver spoons, because somebody might spoon somebody to death. So let's just go with all plastic. People just start calling for things. We don't need this, we don't need that, and you got these. I don't know why I was finna say soccer moms. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, but you just got people that just they just want kumbaya, and they want everything taken to protect them. And I'm like, you're giving up your civil liberties to, so that's it. So I would just say with the mass shootings, it's a bigger problem that it's not being addressed. I think it's purposeful. And because it's not being addressed, everything else around it is it's a falsehood to me. It's a reality for a lot of people, but it's false in narrative, because of the way they've lined it up. And I don't want to say who they is. We'll just say they is they.
Well, ain't nothing wrong with saying who they is. It is who it is. I mean, it's.
Hey man, you better leave all them alphabets where they at. Leave them alphabets in soup. Eat your soup and just don't talk about the math. Don't
not
talk
the
about
alphabets,
man. You gotta be smarter than that. Yeah, you gotta eat your soup. Yeah, you just gotta get it in soup. Don't talk.
Okay, right on. We won't talk about the alphabet. Oh man, listen, I have thoroughly enjoyed this, man. I really have. I really appreciate this. Words can't express how appreciative I am for you to have taken your time being an accredited claims agent, and so many vets out there needing the assistance. It's a beautiful thing that you are doing. We need more agents like you and who look like you to represent us. And I really appreciate what you're doing.
Yes.
And I want to make sure we make note of your podcast that's coming out. What's it's going to be called? What again?
Your Claims, the number 2, Fame.
Your Claims to Fame.
We want Your Claims
to Fame. Gotcha. So
it's a play on the word. When people say, you get your claim to fame, your 15 minutes or whatever, So what I want to I'm just telling people, I want to take your claims and put them where they need.
So we'll make sure.
So I want to take your claims and.
I appreciate that, man. We appreciate the work that you're doing. Look forward to listening to that. I look forward to us speaking again, because there's some things I know we can dig deeper into in the weeds. And next time I'm gonna get you to talk about some of them things and get on off in there. Man. I know people want to hear it, man. So we'll definitely schedule a part 2, and perhaps the round table, as you said. We can bring some others in who may have some opinions and some perspectives that they want to share as well. So, brother, I really appreciate it, man. I appreciate your time. I thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
How they say, all hearts and minds are clear. If there is nothing else, my brother, is there anything else you want to add? Any final thoughts?
No, I appreciate you, man, and the work you're doing for veterans as well. Like I said, you really inspired me to go forward with what I'm trying to accomplish with my podcast. And the kind of person you are, it's not any kind of competition with you, because it shouldn't be. We're both trying to pull people in to listen to what we have to offer, and hopefully it'll help somebody in the midst of it. And I just appreciate you. You don't have a lot of genuine people, that's doing what you're doing on all levels, and I just appreciate you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you as well. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and bring this to a close. And until next time, my brother, God be with you.
Thank you, my brother.